Let's look at a psychological theory that applies to dog culture. Chesterton Fence. Don't destroy what you don't understand. So, in this one, they talk about this fence right here. And it's convenient for this person to just knock the fence down because, well, it's more convenient for them. But they don't understand the fence is there for a reason. It's there for a reason for the sheep flock and other reasons. So, even though it might be more convenient for the person, this guy right here, um, you're going to cause downstream problems by doing that, by changing a long-standing tradition. And so that what Chesterton Fence says. It's don't go breaking these traditions just because it's more convenient for you. So let's look at an example of something that happened in China that really illustrates this.
A more tragic example of misguided reform was China's so-called Great Leap Forward, which lasted from 1958 to 1962. One of its initiatives was the Four Pests campaign to eliminate all mosquitoes, flies, rats, and even sparrows that were suspected of stealing grain from the fields. And so millions of people hit noisy pots and pans to prevent sparrows from resting, with the goal of causing them swarming the country.
So the end result was no sparrows to eat the locusts. So the locusts came in and they didn't get their population controlled by sparrows and they ruined the crops. Crops that were already suffering because the Chinese communists were also changing other fences, other long-standing farming traditions, because they thought it was better, easier, faster, more convenient to do it their way. And in the end, many people died, suffered, farms failed. So that's an example from China. But dog culture does this today too. It used to be just a normal tradition to have your dog outside in a doghouse with a chain and a collar and a dog bowl with water, dog bowl with food. But they changed that. Now you're a dog abuser if you have your dog out there. Now people will do stuff like this. They will say, "Oh, you got a dog tied up outside. You're a terrible person. The dog needs to be on the couch, in the bed, all up in the house." But what is the result of doing all this kind of stuff? The results are these type of things: newborn children, 3-day old baby, newborn kids mauled by dogs. The more that we just change up the standard of keeping a dog outside, it used to be just a long standing standard. That's where dogs lived, outside. Like when I was a little kid, I did had a German Shepherd. We had two of them, and they lived outside in the doghouse. The male one lived up front, the female one was in back, connected to a shed, and their lives were fine. If I brought one in the house, it was like a few minutes, give the dog some treats, take the dog back outside. I didn't sit on the couch and play around with the dog or, bring him in next to my baby brother like we do today. So the results of this changing up the standards just so you can look cooler with your dog and have your dog inside, it's not good. It's the same thing with dogs up in the front seats of cars, dogs inside of restaurants, dogs at playgrounds. What happens? Dogs attack kids at bus stops. You didn't used to be cool to take your dog to the bus stop. When I went to the bus stop, my dog was tied up at home. He's sitting there just staring at the grass. So the result of putting more dogs up inside of human settlements, when for the longest time ever, the standard was completely different. Dogs weren't up in the house in the bed, up by the bassinet, hanging around playgrounds. We didn't have like everywhere special parks for dogs. What happens at those dog parks? Constant fights between humans and dogs and humans fighting each other over whatever. What about animal shelters? Really, only recently in our history have animal shelters been a thing. To pile up a bunch of stray dogs in a shelter, run it on taxpayer money, and put a bunch of people in there working. It used to be you got a dog, your dog died, and then you move on with life. You don't need to have a bunch of dogs in your house. People didn't breed dogs and sell them. We weren't so incentivized to have dogs as a virtue signal, and this type of stuff didn't happen. But nowadays, this happens. We've completely inverted a standard that we used on dogs, and look at the results. The results are death, 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 death. Just like that example from China. What about dogs and women? Probably 2 decades ago, if a dog did some of these type of things to women, the dog would be put down. Look at all this stuff. Blood and guts. Nasty. Facial reconstructive surgeries. Even amputations. It used to be if you did this to a woman, you're done. The family would come after you, the police would come after you. You don't hit a woman, you don't strike a woman. But they completely changed that standard for dogs. Oh, yeah, you can go ahead and do all this crazy, nasty atrocities to women, kids. It's fine. So you see all the standards that have been thrown out of the window just for dog culture, just for the convenience of all this, so people can make themselves look good with dogs. It used to be if you wanted to be like a good person, you would go do like a big brother thing or a big sister thing, or donate some money to the church, or give a bunch of money to a food bank. Nowadays, you just go get a bunch of dogs and pile them up in your house. That's another standard that's been changed. Like you want to be like a humanitarian. It used to be what? Go help your fellow humans. Now it's go dump a bunch of money into tax shelter dog rescues that just breed more and more dogs so they can take more and more money away from you. There's literally thousands of standards that have been completely turned inside out just so we can have these dogs. And that's the whole thing with this Chesterton Fence theory. Do not destroy what you don't understand. Most people nowadays that are into dogs, they don't understand it. They don't understand the standards that we used to have with dogs were there for a reason. Just like in the China example, the sparrows. The sparrows that these guys decided to get rid of, they're there for a freaking reason. The standards of farming that they had were there for a reason. And now with dog culture, all of our human standards that we would normally apply to dogs and to each other, we just throw them out the window. And the results is all this nasty stuff. Woman mauled by 2 dogs. Woman loses both arms and legs after vicious dog attack. And on and on and on. So that is a theory that you guys should familiarize yourself with. One of the reasons is people that are pushing dog culture, they know that this theory, this psychological thing is in place, and they're doing it on purpose. What's going on with dog culture is on purpose. People behind dog culture, the ones that still aren't, completely brainwashed like your typical dog owner, they know that this is going on, and they don't care. And as long as you keep accepting it, then dog culture is just going to get worse and worse.